President Jason Wright, and you're listening to Rambling About Washington.
What's going on, Washington Football Nation? Today, I'd like to welcome to the show NFL and Broncos insider, host, analyst, and reporter, Mr. Benjamin Allbright. What's going on, boss?
Man, it's been one of those mornings, kind of crap weather around here, so I've been a little bit lazy this morning. Turned the camera off so nobody sees my crazy hair going on.
You sleeping in on a day where all this Watson news and shit is going on. What's the latest on that before we get into this Broncos-Washington matchup?
Well, I think it's mostly been the same as it's been for a while. We keep seeing the Texans leak stuff out to kind of try to push the market up, but they're really. It was really kind of a 3-team deal. I mean, you had a couple of teams, like the Niners before the draft and everything were kind of sniffing around that a little bit. Then you had the Broncos before all the legal stuff came out, kind of sniffing around a little bit. But really, it was kind of a 3-team deal with like Philadelphia, Carolina, and Miami being the heaviest in pursuit. And from what I understand, like Miami and Houston kind of sort of have the framework of a deal sort of in place, but Miami just doesn't want to pull the trigger because they're worried they're throwing draft picks away if the legal stuff doesn't go away. So I'm not sure a deal gets done. I know Carolina's pulled out. I think Philly's pulled out as well, with all the legal stuff. So I think that it's Miami or bust at the deadline, and I don't know if a deal gets done. I can't see a team throwing those kind of assets at another team if they don't have assurances that he's going to play for them. Now, the flip side of that, we get the owners' meetings and all that kind of stuff going on right now. So if you were owners and you wanted to talk to Goodell and get those assurances, now would be the time to do it. But as it sits right now, I don't know if Miami just agrees to pull the trigger on this when all's said and done. I will say, and it's been out there before, but I'll reiterate, Tua would not be going to Houston in that scenario either.
Hell yeah. And in that situation, I would hope that Tua would be bringing his ass to Washington, because I am big on Tua myself. I think a lot of people are writing it off without actually watching him play, and he would be a significant upgrade. Like the durability, I get it. That is the major concern with Tua. But like, what are the chances that Washington puts their hat in the ring for either of these guys?
I don't think they're in for Watson. I think for Tua, yeah. I mean, that's been the rumor for months that Washington would be the landing spot. Now, I don't know, that's not 100%. That's just been the rumor with people I talked to around the league. Tua needs a certain kind of offense to thrive. Like, he needs a schedule offense, and you guys kind of run that. In Washington, he would be a good fit there. And a lot of being quarterback in the NFL really is about fit. You look around the league and you look at guys that are being used well. Josh Allen got an offense and got consistency, and it kind of fit his skill set. If he tried to go to a regular West Coast offense to start, I don't think he would be the same Josh Allen that he is right now. You look at Justin Fields up there in Chicago, and Justin has his own problems, and he certainly has not been as good as people wanted, but he's also in an offense that doesn't highlight almost anything he does well. So that's right. Sort of a problem as well. So, I fit and scheme are so important. And I think, if Tua does go to Washington, I do think that's a good fit for him.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect fit. And Ron was definitely high on him. I think he's a personality fit. I like his ability. Like, I see him as like a high-end version of what we thought Heineke could be, but like a much more talented version of that with more juice in his arm. He doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, but much more juice than the guy we got back there. But speaking of arms with juice, didn't Drew Lock work out in Denver? Because you guys are playing Teddy Bridgewater, who I like to call the ultimate pedestrian quarterback, but he just does enough that he's always going to get a job, and most of his jobs are going to be starting in the league. What happened with Drew Lock? And are the Broncos shopping him at all?
I don't know that they're shopping him. What happened was the coaching staff last year got frustrated with him. They, too many turnovers, things like that. And, you got an old coaching staff, you got Vic Fangio as the head coach, Pat Shermer's the OC, Mike Shula, Mike Munchak. These guys been around a long time. It's not like a young staff that's willing to have patience with a guy and kind of work through stuff. And I just think their personalities and the play style didn't really match. The coaching staff got frustrated. They wanted a guy that they felt like wouldn't turn it over. And so they went out and told George Payton to go get Teddy Bridgewater. He got him for him, and there you go. I don't know that Teddy's necessarily any better when all's said and done. It looks prettier. It looks prettier, but completing 3rd and 5 completions, that pads the completion percentage and the quarterback rating, but it doesn't help you when you're 3rd and 9. And I'm not sure it's necessarily any better than than Drew trying to fire up a 15-yard incompletion on 3rd and 9, because in both situations you end up punting anyway. So I think Teddy just represents really a prettier way to lose in most cases, and we've seen that over the last 4 games. Now granted, during the Cleveland game he wasn't healthy. He came on our station yesterday and said he was only about 70% for that game, which raises several other questions, with Vic Fangio a couple weeks ago. Talk about player safety a couple weeks ago, and then you trotting a guy out who's saying he's 70%. That's something, and and then there everything else. So I Drew Lock, I think it just soured. I think it was just a work relationship that soured between the coach and the player. If it were me, I would have had him out there. I probably would have him out there, but because the range of outcomes is better. If he either grows into the guy you want him to be, and that's good, or he completely fails, you get a better draft pick. But you've got a coaching staff that's fighting for their jobs, so I guess I kind of understand it.
Yep. So Drew Lock is pretty much buried in the doghouse at this point. Is there a fit league wide? Do you think, like a team or offensive system or coach that you think he would fit with?
I think a team that likes to run the ball a lot and then likes to go vertical off play action. You guys have Scott Turner there as the OC, and that's not exactly what he does, but his daddy used to do that. North Turner used to do that. If you could find a scheme or a setup that's similar to that, I think, honestly, it's going to sound weird, but a setup like what the Ravens do, where you've got a lot of pin pull and you got a strong rush attack, and then you try to attack vertically and stuff like that. Honestly, I think that kind of setup would favor what he does.
Okay. All right, so perfect. So moving on to Washington versus Denver. And I know the main with Washington feels like it's the main issue with Denver as well. We kind of lack an identity. We were supposed to come in being this defensive juggernaut team, but it's been like each week has been a tale of 2 halves for this team. And the Broncos started off hot. They started off 3-0 and have since lost 4 in a row. What is the identity of the Denver Broncos 7 weeks into the season?
Well, if you ask the fan base right now, I think the identity is a flaming dumpster. But I think overall there is confusion to that, because you have 2 talented running backs that you don't use enough. You've got a receiving core that's pretty good, but you're dialing up weird plays that don't really feature them. And I think it's just a team in disarray. You got a defense that has underperformed relative to expectation. This defense was expected to be top 5 going into the season, or one of the highest paid defenses in the league. The highest paid defense in the league. And they've had some key injuries. The linebacking core, the inside linebackers have been decimated. They don't have Alexander Johnson, Josie Jewell, Micah Kaiser. So they're missing inside linebackers 1 through 3. Inside linebacker 4's got a concussion. And so they're relying on practice squad guys to stop the run. And we saw how, that made Dearness Johnson look like D. Eric Henry out there toting the rock on Thursday night. But it's a tough setup, because you can't stop the run. Well, then all of a sudden you're bringing safeties down. Now you can't play what you're doing, and you want to play quarters match in the pass game. You can't do that because you have to bring safeties down. So there's just a lot going on. And then you've got some players that aren't what you expected. I mean, Kyle Fuller's clearly lost a step. Kareem Jackson's lost a step, and those are guys you thought you were going to be counting on. I mean, Ronald Darby got hurt; he was out. He's really, outside of Bryce Callahan and Pat Surtain, probably been your best defenders. and your defensive line, you're not getting as much push. Bradley Chubb was out, so you got Malik Reed in there. He doesn't anchor well in the run game. He's only kind of a situational rusher. Jonathan Cooper is great as a pass rusher, but he kind of stinks in the run game. So, there's just some issues with this defense overall in terms of what they got and what's ready to go.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on in the Fuller gene pool this year, but just like Kyle, Kendall is having a terrible season. Like, I don't know what the Fuller brothers did this offseason, but it's been really bad on all accounts. And our defense was supposed to be one of the top defenses in the league, and it has been far from that. But they finally put together a decent performance versus Lambeau versus the Packers on Sunday. But we got down to the red zone 1,000 times and wasn't able to capitalize. The Broncos offense, it's a run-heavy offense, correct?
Well, it should be. It isn't. That's the problem. It should be a run-heavy offense. The problem is the Pat Shurmur offense is basically take some kind of unwarranted deep shot on first down because we're going to catch him napping because I've only done that my whole career, but somehow people are going to think I'm not going to do it here. And then when it doesn't work, then second down, he runs Melvin Gordon up the middle for 2 yards and then tries to figure it out on 3rd and 8, which usually consists of Teddy Bridgewater taking a 3-yard dump down and hoping Noah Fant can turn that into 9 yards. So no, it should be a run heavy offense, but it really isn't. And that's the thing, because Melvin Gordon's been really good this year. And Javonte Williams has shown explosive ability as well. Now he's getting stuffed quite a bit. He gets stuffed for 0 or negative yards 1 out of every 4 carries. But Javonte, when he busts one, it's fun to watch. And he's the future there. But Melvin has been more consistent, gets you 4 or 5 yards a pop just about every time. So they need to feature both those guys more. The problem is you've got a schedule quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater. He's a guy that's kind of like Alex Smith, and you guys will be familiar with it because you got Heineke there as well. Quarterback, if you keep ahead of the down and distance markers, he'll keep the offense on schedule. You'll get down there, you'll get a field goal. Sometimes you get a touchdown, but you get behind the chains, you get a holding call, or you get 0 yards on first down, and you know what's coming. Yeah, they're not going to be able to make it up. You're going to have to punt and hope the defense can hold. And both these two teams have defenses that are underperforming.
Yeah, both of them. And the way I see it, like, Washington's biggest issue defensively is our backers can't cover tight ends. Our backers in general aren't really impressive. Our first-round pick has been kind of a disappointment. We're finally starting to see him get full-time snaps, Jamin Davis, and we let obscure, like, lower-end receivers have career days versus us like every week. So this week I'm looking at Hinton. I'm telling people, start him in fantasy, start Noah Fant in fantasy, because we don't cover wide receiver 3s, wide receiver 4s, and we do not cover tight ends. But I'm looking at the quarterback matchup in this game between Teddy and Taylor, and who do you think has the advantage in this matchup?
Well, in reality, neither. But if we're sitting there having to do it, I'm gonna lean Teddy just because he's the veteran. Just because he's the guy that's been around longer. I mean, although Taylor Heineke's 28 years old. I mean, they're close to the same age.
Hell yeah.
But Teddy, right? But Teddy's got the starts, and Teddy's got the game, the real world, the real game experience. So if there has to be a lean, it's a paper thin lean that direction.
Yeah, man, that's the way I see it too. Because trust me, like, as a Washington fan, it's been a purgatory of quarterbacks my entire life. Like, shit, I just turned 30, and we've never had like, Kirk was the closest to a sure thing. Shit, he looks like a sure thing compared to everything I've seen here as a fan. And this is just a not appealing quarterback matchup, like Taylor Heineke and Teddy Bridgewater. Like Teddy, Tayrod, Alex Smith, those guys, those are just like steady Eddie guys that you put on a roster where you have a young guy in waiting to take over. And there's nothing sexy or exciting as a fan about a quarterback matchup like this. But there's some good receivers in this matchup. We got Cortland Sutton and Terry McLaurin, ballers. They could be so much better than what their numbers reflect, but they're so limited with quarterback play. Which receiver is going to have a bigger day on Sunday?
Well, that's the question. If McLaurin can get free in the secondary, and Denver has certainly shown an ability to let guys like that happen. Marquise Brown and Henry Ruggs both got free back there for big touchdowns. If he can get free, he could probably have a big day, some big chunk plays and a big chunk touchdown. I think Cortland probably has more catches and more targets than McLaurin does. It's just a question of whether or not McLaurin busts one. I think the receiving core as a whole for Denver is a little deeper. I mean, you got Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy's coming back for this game. You mentioned Kendall Hinton. So I think the receiving core is a little deeper for Denver overall, but you might have better top-end talent with McLaurin there.
Healthy is Jeudy right now? Is he 100% to go? Is he going to be on a snap count?
I think he's going to be on a snap count, but I think he's, as close to 100% as he can get. He's, in the 90% range. We'll see if he's able to plant and cut, because that's really like his thing. Like Jerry Jeudy's, his whole game is on that dead leg and that fake and doing the plant cut on a dime. And the Broncos have missed that. I talked about Teddy Bridgewater dumping it down on third down. Well, it was working in the first game when he would dump it down, because Jerry Jeudy would take a 4-yard catch and turn it into a 15-yard catch. And they don't really have anybody else that can do that. Cortland, Noah Fant, Tim Patrick aren't those guys. Those guys are long striders that are more contested catch guys.
Oh yeah, and is it like do you think a part of the reason that they've kind of shelved Drew Lock and decided to go the steady quarterback route? You said there's coaches playing for their jobs. Is part of it because they feel confidently that Rodgers is coming to Mile High once the season's over?
I think that's a possibility. They felt like it was going to happen this past offseason, but the Packers just wouldn't deal. And I don't know that Rodgers is necessarily the quarterback. There are options. Russ Wilson wants out of Seattle, and I think that they would be heavily in pursuit of him as well. I think Teddy Bridgewater represented a veteran stopgap kind of guy that could get them through the season, that they felt, if he just played kind of steady and didn't turn it over, the defense would pick up the slack and they'd win. That hasn't happened, though. The defense has not been what they expected, and so that's the reason you're seeing them at 3-4 right now instead of maybe 5-2.
So what? So it was just the Packers not playing ball, like, just to dig into the Rodgers thing, because I remember the Schefter thing and everything right before the draft started. It seemed like it was like a done deal, Rodgers to Denver. What exactly was the hiccup in that situation? It was just Green Bay saying, "Hell no, y'all are not getting our fucking quarterback," or like what happened in that situation?
Yeah, Green Bay wouldn't even answer the phone. Like that's what happened. is that there had been back channel negotiations. You can't actually negotiate with the player because that's tampering. But there had been his agent reaching out to representatives that are intermediaries for the Broncos that pass along info. And you know how this stuff works. And so they go back and forth with that kind of thing. And that's kind of where that was at. There was a whole bunch of stuff that was it was funny. There were a bunch of things that were speculated on because Aaron Rodgers and John Elway were spotted on the same golf course, but John was just getting there as Aaron was leaving. It wasn't like a big deal. That kind of stuff wasn't really a big deal. The other stuff was happening behind the scenes with David Dunn and all that. So, I think the Broncos thought that it was going to happen. They just needed Green Bay to pick up the phone and play ball, and Green Bay just wouldn't do it.
Okay, so that makes sense. So you do suspect Russell Wilson is going to try to get out of Seattle again, but officially this time this offseason.
Yeah, I think so. They may do some things there to try to keep him, but I think last year he kind of, made his intentions known, but didn't really play hardball. And so then he decided, I'm going to be a good teammate, come back and do whatever. I think this year he'll play hardball. So it'll be interesting to see if they clean house on the coaching staff and kind of, loop him in on that, or if they just let him walk, stick with the coaching staff, or if they blow it all up. It's going to be in Seattle's going to be one of the more interesting teams to keep an eye on this offseason.
Yeah, they're going to be a very interesting team. I'll definitely have my eyes on them because I'm not just going to believe that my football team, who's going to be rolling into a new identity, a new name next year, is just going to roll in that new name with fucking Taylor Heineke at quarterback. How would you, if you ran things here in Washington, which is a shit show, by the way, how would you solve the quarterback situation here in D.C.?
Well, I think we'd look at what was coming available in free agency. I think we'd look at what was coming available in the draft and kind of make, get a couple of targets and kind of make our decision there. I don't think the answer's on the roster. Anytime you bring Ryan Fitzpatrick in, you're pretty much saying, hey, look, we don't believe our answer is on the roster. Ryan's supposed to get us
Right.
get us through. So I think that's it. You look at the draft. I mean, it just depends. I don't think they're going to be in position to draft Matt Corral, who I think is the best guy in this class. If you've got a bridge guy, then you can kind of look at maybe Malik Willis. I think he's more of a project that's going to take a year before he's ready, but we'll see. There's a couple other guys out there. You talked about Kirk Cousins earlier. Well, Kirk Cousins 2.0, Kenny Pickett, is sitting out there in this draft.
I'll take him.
There's a couple of guys in this draft you can look at. Free agency, I mean, it just depends. I talked about Russ and Rodgers. There's going to be some guys available. Teddy will probably be available. If you want him.
No, please, God, no. Please, God, no.
You might wind up with Tua. We talked about Tua and all that kind of stuff. You might wind up with Tua. So there's options. I think you just got to kind of keep your options open and go from there. The other part of this is Scott Turner still going to be there? Scott Turner's going to get some head coaching interviews, believe it or not. So, is he still going to be there in Washington next year? That'll be a question. And, what kind of offense are you going to run if he's not there? So that's the other question I think that you have to factor in.
See, that's a great point. I want to highlight that point because there are a lot of fans in this fan base who shit on Scott Turner every week. Oh, fire Scott Turner. He's fucking terrible. But they're discounting the fact that he's coached like 6 quarterbacks in his first year and a half as an offensive coordinator, and the offense somehow still moves the ball down the goddamn field every week, no matter who we're playing. And he's getting head coaching. He's going to get head coaching. Or people are going to say, oh, it's nepotism. It's because he's Norv's son. But I see an offense that would work. We would work consistently if they had a fucking quarterback that can just punch the ball in the end zone when they need to. We didn't punt the ball versus the Packers last week. Tress Way did not come on the field, and we scored 10 points. So that tells you all you need to know about the quarterback situation.
Well, yeah, and I finally got a chance to actually watch that game last night. I watched the other Washington games. I hadn't watched that one yet. I finally got the chance, and I saw the Taylor Heineke kneel down on the goal line, where he was there was nobody around him, and that knee touchdown before he got in the end zone or whatever.
Absurd.
Yeah, it's just bad luck. But yeah, that's the thing. I mean, if you're Scott Turner, you design an offense for a quarterback, and then you have to deal with like 6 or 7 of them because of injuries and everything else, and it puts a damper on what you can do. Sometimes it's not the OC. Sometimes you just don't have it to dial up for what you got. And he's out there making chicken salad out of chicken shit. And that's honestly been the been the thing. People are noticing that. It's not. I mean, nepotism may have something to do with it, with the name brand and all that. But I'm going to tell you, I know more than one team that has Scott Turner on their interview short list. So it's not just nepotism.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. So we're going to make some predictions on the game. I'm going to let you go ahead and plug your social media handles and stuff, and we can get out of here. How do you see the game faring on Sunday? And give me a score prediction.
I think it's going to be pretty close. I think if Washington sticks with the run, they'll be in this game late. I think Denver has a slight advantage being at home. And we'll and a slight advantage with the quarterback just because you got a guy who's done a little bit more, a lot longer. So I'm gonna give this game to Denver in a close one, like 21-20. But I would not be surprised to see if Washington took it and made me look like an idiot. So there you go.
All right, yeah, I see it playing out like a 21-17 game. I still haven't decided who's going to win this game yet. I'm leaning towards Denver, but I want to pick Washington because I don't see too many W's left on the schedule for this team. And this is one of the couple games that I can say is a winnable, but we're on the road. We're going into Mile High, and the Broncos have at least shown that they're capable of scoring points at times. So I don't know what the hell to expect from this game Sunday, but I appreciate you coming on with me today. Go ahead and tell people where they can find you, and feel free to break any news if it comes in the next couple seconds.
Well, no news currently, but I'll keep an eye out. As far as unfollow me at Allbright NFL. My Twitter account's a dumpster fire. It's terrible. I wouldn't follow me, so you can unfollow me there. And then we do the radio show on Broncos Country Night. It's called Broncos Country Night, but we talk about the whole league and all that kind of stuff. And we're heard in like 32 states in Mexico and Canada. If you can't find it, you can always stream it on your smart device. So.
Hey man, I can appreciate how you operate on Twitter, because Twitter trolls are hilarious, and some people will call you snarky and call you a dick, but that's how you're supposed to operate on Twitter, because a lot of people just have shit to say and they're fucking miserable in their bitter ass lives. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for coming on today, Ben.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
All right. Until next time, hail to the nameless football team. Deuces.